Hi, boys and girls. Welcome back, and to such an exciting part in the story. Our protagonist, Madison McGee, has just entered the sound set of her very favorite television show of all time, and she's going to get to meet her hero, Carly Knight. I bet that's going to be fun. Let's find out. Chapter 16. The first person I saw when I walked through the door, mean girl, Allison Hunter. "Hey, you must be Madison," she said. I was speechless. "Or should I just call you cousin? Anyway, nice to meet you." She grinned and stuck her hand straight out, so I shook it. Nice to meet you too," I mumbled, maybe because I was in a state of shock. Allison Hunter didn't seem to be mean. In fact, she seemed kind of nice. "Don't worry, I don't bite. Everyone who meets me for the first time thinks I'm just like my character Ashley, a first-class, stuck-up pain in the butt. That's if they watch the show. Do you watch it?" "I've seen it," I said. "Actually, every episode." "And now you'll be in one. How cool is that? Been in the business for long?" As she talked, she stretched and bent and popped up and down on her toes. Not really. I was on a shopping show once." "Awesome. You gotta start somewhere." We shot the first two scenes on a set I'd seen at least 1,000,000 times before. It was Ashley's rich girl bedroom. There was a motorized TV screen that dropped down from the ceiling with the push of a button, a fancy gilded bed that some real French princess had slept in back in the 15th century, and a closet almost as big as Florida's whole living room. The first thing we shot was the scene when Sophie arrives at Ashley's house. I have to admit, at first I stank. I was terrible, with a capital T. In the scene, Ashley was on her cell phone and didn't want to be interrupted. I was supposed to be a holy terror and interrupt her anyway. "I'm more important than any dumb phone call," I said. "Cut!" yelled the director, moving closer to her. "And Madison, I want it louder and brattier." I tried my line again. "I'm more important than any dumb phone call." "Cut! That's all you've got? Make it 100% brattier." I tried it again and again. By the time he told me to make it 1,000% brattier, my eyes stung with tears. Allison leaned over and whispered, "Think of the brattiest kid you've ever known." "Easy. Molly Cooper," I said. We'd been in 5th grade together. She always said mean things about her friends and worse things about her enemies. She whined about everything. "Pretend you're Molly Cooper," Allison said. So I did. I acted exactly like Molly Cooper, and the director loved it. "Now that's what I call acting," he said. "Cut! And we're moving on." He was so happy that he kissed me smack on the top of my head. The girls who played the twins, Tiffany and Tanya, came in for the next scene and sat with Allison up on the huge, fancy princess bed. The director told me to lie on the floor and pretend to be drawing a picture of Allison and a boy named Dylan. He was the kid in the script that both Ashley and Jessica had crushes on. The director said I didn't have to draw for real because they'd hired an artist who'd already done the picture I was going to show the girls. I was supposed to hold up the artist's finished drawing and tell Allison that if she didn't invite Jessica, I would give the picture to Dylan at the party. Basic blackmail. But the prop guy had forgotten all about getting someone to do the drawing, so I volunteered to do it myself. "I'm a much better artist than I am an actress," I promised the director, so he let me. Okay, this may be lame, but getting to sketch that picture was one of the coolest parts of my whole day. Why? My drawing was going to be on national television. Some people might think it was way cooler that I got to be on television, but my lifelong dream is to be an artist, not an actress. I really wished my mom could have seen it. She'd always told me that someday millions of people would see my artwork and I'd be famous. She couldn't have imagined it would happen quite this way, but who could? While the 3 girls said their lines, I started in on my sketch. When we got to the blackmail part of the scene, I said my line in my brattiest, whiniest, most Molly Cooper voice. But I love Jessica. I've seen all her movies. If you don't invite her, I'm going to show your little lover boy Dylan this when he comes to the party, and you can't stop me. Then I held up my drawing. In it, Allison had her hands clasped to her chest. Dozens of hearts flowed from her, knocking over the terrified boy. Allison's speech bubble said, "Marry me, Dylan." A thought bubbled over the boy, said, "Mommy, help!" The girls burst into laughter. They weren't supposed to, but they did. They told me they didn't know what was funnier, the picture I'd drawn or the way I'd said my line. The director yelled, "Cut!" and asked me to do exactly what I'd done before. He told the other girls to try to keep a straight face. We started again. Every time I said my line, the girls cracked up. By the fourth take, I was laughing right along with them. You know how sometimes you start laughing at something and then after a while you're just laughing at yourself laughing? That's what happened. Even the director was in hysterics. It took us 15 minutes to get it right. The director breathed a sigh of relief and chuckled. Well, at least we have some good footage for the blooper reel. That was fun. Chapter 17. By the time we were ready to shoot the party scene, I could barely keep my eyes open. When I'd zapped into the TV, it was already 8 at night in Truth or Consequences, and it felt as if I'd been on the Just Jessica set for hours. It sure took a lot longer to make a TV show than it did to watch one. I wondered if I'd traveled backwards in time to film the show. And then when I zapped out again, I'd be back in real time. It made my head hurt, just thinking about it. I changed into a fancy velvet party dress I'm sure Florida would have loved, slipped my remote control into a matching purse, and hurried outside behind Martha. An enormous bus waited to take us to where we'd be shooting the party scene. That's when my second wind kicked in. At last, I was going to meet Carly and Jamal. The bus was packed with kids who were playing the party guests. Allison waved me over. She'd saved me the last open seat. Martha sat in the only spot left, on the top at the front of the bus. "There's no room for Carly and Jamal," I pointed out to Allison. "Jamal's up front." She nodded toward a dark-skinned boy with glasses. His nose was buried in a book, and his signature short, spiky dreadlocks were hidden beneath a gray knit ski cap. I couldn't believe I'd walked right past him and hadn't even noticed. The guy's a total bookworm. Mostly he keeps to himself, but that's cool. His mom forced him into show business. The minute he turns 18, he'll quit and tell his parents to go you know where. He wants to go to college. I'll bet you someday he finds a cure for cancer or something. He's a complete brainiac. What about Carly? Carly? Oh, you'll meet her on location. We drove from the film studio into the town of Bel Air. It is one of the fanciest neighborhoods in Los Angeles, right up there with Beverly Hills. The bus pulled in front of an enormous mansion, the place where Allison's character Ashley was throwing her Sweet 14 party. Everyone filed into the backyard. I couldn't believe my eyes. Surrounding a humongous swimming pool were life-size Greek statues. There were so many exotic potted plants blooming with giant jungle flowers. I had to remind myself we hadn't just parachuted into a super ritzy South Sea Islands resort. The director got busy telling everybody where to stand. At first, I was supposed to sit on a marble bench and look bored. Allison and her TV friends hung out by the pool with the boy playing the part of Dylan. I have to admit, he was kind of cute. And I don't even really like boys that way. Then I finally saw her, Carly Knight. She and Jamal were dressed in silly black and white spotted Dalmatian footy pajamas. They were just inside the house, getting ready for their entrance. I smiled my friendliest smile, but I don't think she saw me, which was okay. It was almost time for our first big scene together. The cameras rolled, and Carly and Jamal walked into the backyard. Everyone playing the party guests acted super rude and chanted, "Ew, ew, it's P.U. Le Pew." I was supposed to look starstruck. When we were done with the scene, the director complimented me. He said I did it exactly right. The truth? I hadn't been acting. I was starstruck. Finally, it was the time I'd been waiting for. My first scene with Carly Knight. The director told me to push and shove through the crowd of kids to get to her. On the way, I needed to snatch a paper plate from the food table so she could sign her autograph on it. "Action!" he yelled. I jumped up and did what I was told. Push, shove, grab the paper plate. When I got to Carly Knight, I was shaking on the inside, but I was determined not to show it on the outside. I didn't want to make a fool of myself. I stuck straight to the script and said my lines. "Ignore them. They're mean. I'm Ashley's cousin, Sophie. Don't hold that against me, okay?" I held out my hand for her to shake, just the way it said in the script. "I won't." She shook my hand and smiled bright as a billion birthday candles. "I'm a huge fan," I gushed. "Could I have your autograph?" I held out the plate. "Of course. Anything for a fan." She fished in her purse, pulled out a pen, and signed, "Your friend, Jessica Le Pew." "Gosh, thanks," I gushed again, just like I was supposed to. "I'll never eat a single crumb off this plate." Carly laughed, her white teeth flashing bright as her smile. "Cut! Perfect! We're moving on." Wow, one take. Of course, Carly was perfect. As for me, I guess I did okay, because I'd barely been acting. She turned back to walk inside the house. I worked up the nerve to talk to her for real, with no script involved. "Excuse me, Carly?" She spun around and stared. I was instantly tongue-tied. "Well?" she asked. At last I spit it out. My real name is Madison McGee, but I actually am a true fan. In real life, I mean." "Oh. Would you mind signing your real autograph on a plate? One for me and one for my best friend, Violet?" "Sorry, Madeline, or whatever your name is. I don't do autographs on set. Contact my fan club, or maybe you can buy one on eBay." She turned and disappeared inside the house. Seriously? My whole world practically crumbled on the spot. Carly Knight, the star who played nice girl Jessica Le Pew, was mean. I didn't know how I was ever going to break it to Violet. I felt a hand on my shoulder. It was Allison. "Don't let her get to you, Madison. The girl has issues. She may be pretty and talented, but you know how many real friends Carly has? None. I used to hate her. Now I just feel sorry for her. Carly Knight is not a happy person." Boy, that was an understatement. Wow, unexpected. Chapter 18. I spent the rest of the afternoon trying to figure out what it would take to get Carly Knight to understand that life would be way more fun if she was nice to people. My mom always said, if you treat unkind people with kindness, it's possible they'll eventually come around. So my mission was to be super nice to Carly Knight, even if she had been super mean to me. By the end of the day, I was pretty sure my niceness would overwhelm her, and she'd start treating everyone with kindness. It didn't quite work out that way. "Want a bite of my chocolate cake?" I'd asked her when we took a break for lunch. "You think I'd eat the same crap the catering company serves you?" I have my own gourmet lunch brought in. And about that chocolate cake, it'll make you fat. I thought that was extremely rude, but I kept on with my mission. Later, I tried to make conversation with her. My mom had always said, a lot of people like to talk about themselves. What's your favorite part about being on TV? I asked. Why would I tell you? Carly snapped. Ooh, boy, this was going to be harder than I imagined. When it was time to have our makeup retouched, the lady with the multiple ear piercings had only just started on me with that airbrush business when Carly stomped over in a huff. Can't you people get this blush on evenly? Honestly. Okay, the weirdest thing? She sounded just like whiny Molly Cooper. I hopped off the chair and let Carly take my place. The makeup lady said, thank you. And you know what Carly said? Absolutely, positively, nothing. The rest of the afternoon, I smiled at Carly Knight at least 12 times. And here's how many times she smiled back at me. 0. Finally, it was time to shoot my big falling in the pool scene. Cameras were set up everywhere. There was even one under the water. I ditched my remote control behind the marble bench so it wouldn't get wet when I was accidentally pushed into the swimming pool. By now, I wasn't nearly so excited about being saved by Carly Knight. I just wanted to get the whole thing over with. I stood on my mark near the edge of the pool, and the director called, action! The boy who played Dylan flirted with Tiffany. Allison teetered in between them on her spiky heels. She stumbled into Tiffany, who bumped into Dylan, who tripped back into Allison. Allison fell onto her butt and knocked me into the pool. It made me think of that game, Mousetrap, where one thing falls and then another until you finally catch the mouse. I guess first I was the mousetrap, and then I was the mouse. I waved my arms frantically, pretending to drown. Right on cue, Carly and the boy who played Dylan jumped into the pool to save me. They dragged me back to the steps. As I coughed up water, they kept asking me if I was okay. When the cameras were rolling, Carly was just the way I'd imagined her to be in real life. Someone who could easily be your best friend. In our scene, she draped her arm around my shoulder and she was kind, but it was just an act. Besides, I already had a true best friend, even though now I lived more than 1,000 miles away from her and she was spending the summer in Paris. As soon as the director yelled, "Cut!" Carly let go of me as if I were some deadly disease. "Thank God that's over," she said. "I despise getting wet." She stood up so fast she knocked me sideways and I smacked my right arm on the edge of the concrete pool, hard. I knew it was an accident, but it hurt like heck. I was in pain. "Don't be such a baby. Maybe we should get wardrobe to bring you a diaper," she snapped. Then she walked away. That was the last thing Carly Knight ever said to me. While they shot the scene where Dylan asks Jessica out on a date, I retrieved my remote control. Martha brought me my own clothes and led me into a room in the house so I could get changed. When I was dressed and dry, I looked out the window and watched Carly Knight climb into a shiny black limousine. Of course, that's why she wasn't on the bus. You might think it was nuts to imagine that my Carly Knight kindness mission would work, but maybe I just didn't have enough time. I needed more than a half a day to show Carly Knight that in the long run, it pays to be nice. Martha kept bugging me to hurry because it was time to head back to the studio. That was the last place I wanted to go. I decided to try the old bathroom trick again. This time, I really went into the bathroom, locked the door, and pulled out the remote control. I was sorry I wouldn't have a chance to say goodbye to Allison, but there wasn't much I could do. It was time to return to my regular old life and truth or consequences. I pushed the purple button and the silver return button at the same time. Ping! Next thing I knew, I was standing back in Florida's living room and watching the credits roll by on the Megapix. That's when I saw my name. And introducing Madison McGee as Sophie. I dropped the remote on the coffee table and checked the clock. It was only 8:30. I felt as if I'd been gone about 100 hours, but I'd only zapped in the TV a half an hour before. My eyelids were heavy as bricks, my hair was damp, and my arm ached. I headed into my room and opened my window wide in case Leroy wanted to come in. I'm pretty sure I hadn't gone to bed at 8:30 since I was in 2nd grade. But that night, I made an exception. Well, that was different. A lot to think about there for Madison, don't you think? Chapter 19. If you think zapping into the TV is freaky, the dream I had was even freakier. In my dream, or should I say my nightmare, Carly Knight flushed my remote control down a toilet as big as a swimming pool, and I had to be on Just Jessica for the rest of my life. She forced me to bring her racks and racks of frilly pink clothes to try on. When I attempted to escape, she shoved me into the giant toilet. Just as she flushed, I woke up. Through the haze of my dream, I'd heard a strange sound coming from the backyard. A yowling, sickly cat, a deranged coyote. The morning light streamed through the open window, but before I could look outside, Leroy joined in the chorus, howling at the top of his lungs. He was stretched out at the end of my bed. "Shh," I whispered as I clamped my hand over his muzzle. If Florida caught Leroy in the house, she'd have a first-class trophy-winning fit. I slid out of bed and grabbed him by the collar. That's when I felt my arm. Oh, it hurt like heck. A giant plum purple bruise streaked from my shoulder down to my elbow. Ouch! I let go of his collar to inspect the damage. Leroy licked my arm. I cried out in pain. Maybe he was trying to help, but a hard dog lick on a giant bruise does not feel good. When I peeked down the hallway, the coast was clear. A concert of snores echoed from Florida's bedroom. Grandpa Jack must have changed his mind about going back to Alamogordo. Leroy kept trying to howl along to the backyard racket, so I held onto his muzzle until we were outside. The second I let go, he bolted next door, right over to the neighbor lady, who was planting flowers and crooning at the top of her lungs. Leroy howled in unison. "Oh, Leroy, you silly old dog. Is my singing that bad? It can't be much worse than the nutty racket you're making." She had a point. Her singing and Leroy's howls seemed to be competing for worst noise pollution ever. "What do you think?" she smiled. "Who's today's winner of the bad singing contest? Me or Leroy?" Should I even talk to her? She looked friendly enough. Why did Florida think she was crazy anyway? Leroy seemed to like her, and dogs usually have a sixth sense about those things. Before I could answer, she noticed my battered arm. "Oh my goodness," she said. "What happened?" An accident," I mumbled. I wasn't ready to tell anyone about Just Jessica and the magic TV. "Come inside. We'll get you fixed up." I hesitated, frozen to the spot. But after all I'd just been through, something dawned on me, like one of those cartoon light bulbs that pop up on over a character's head. Judging a person by their layers of clothes, or an actress by the character she plays, wasn't too different than judging a book by its cover. I decided to take a chance. Leroy and I followed her up her back stairs and into the house. "I'm sure your Grandma Florida calls me the crazy lady. But let me properly introduce myself. I'm Rosalie Claire Kennedy." "I'm Madison McGee." "Yes, I know that. And it's a pleasure to finally meet you. Officially, that is." I really wanted to know how she knew my name, but I was too nervous to ask. We sat at the table in her sunny yellow kitchen, and she had me rest my arm on a towel she spread on the formica top. I told Leroy to sit. He did, and then curled up by my feet. Rosalie Clare unzipped her fanny pack, and I stared in amazement as she pulled out more stuff than could possibly fit in there. Washcloths, rolls of gauze, tins, tubes, jars of mustard and honey, and a plump brown-skinned onion. It reminded me of Mary Poppins' carpet bag, only this was real. Was it magic too? My mom had always insisted there was no such thing as magic. And at one time, I hadn't believed in it either. But after zapping into the TV, I now believed in magic 100%. Rosalie Clare pulled a big ceramic bowl from her cupboard and got to work. "So what's your story, Miss Madison? What brings you to Truth or Consequences?" she asked as she concocted a potion of mustard seed, honey, and smashed up onion. I wished I'd had that little printed card about my mom to pull out. I really didn't want to talk about it. "What I mean is, what do you think life is going to deliver to you while you're here?" That wasn't the question I'd expected at all. I had no idea, so I said the first thing that came to mind. "I guess I'll just go to school and wait to grow up so I can move away and go to college." But I couldn't picture myself going to the windowless school on the edge of town, or finding friends here who would ever like me the way Violet did. "And that's it? Really?" she asked, looking right into me with her brown sugar eyes. "My mom died. This is the only place I had to go." I stared down at my arm as she slathered it with sticky yellow mush. It resembled a jumbo hot dog with extra mustard. Rosalie Clare's eyes brimmed with tears. "When I heard about your mama, it made me feel sad down to the bottom of my soul." She began to say something else, but she stopped herself and waved her words away. "Madison," she finally said, "you can't be more than 11? That's a lot of years of waiting around to leave a place. A lot of years of lost adventures. Pardon me for saying so, but that almost makes me sadder than your mama dying." Leroy whimpered from under the table, as if he understood every word. My eyes stung hot with tears. I could have kicked myself because I knew that talking about my mom would make me cry. By the time Rosalie Clare had wrapped my arm up with a fat roll of snow-white gauze, I'd told her things I'd never breathed to another soul. Not even Violet. All about my mom and her broken-down heart. All about not budging from the end of her hospital bed for 2 days straight when she was hooked up to monitors and tubes. All about watching her die. I told her about living with Violet until school was out, and I confessed that I absolutely, positively hated living with Florida. Rosalie Clare's eyes were wet with tears too. "Life hasn't done you any favors lately. But remember, sometimes even when you think you hate something, life can jump out and surprise you. Sometimes things that seem bad can, in the end, turn out good. Truth or Consequences is a strange little town, but it can deliver up some big magic if you know how to look for it." Magic, huh? I swallowed hard. I think maybe I've found it. The magic, I mean. I confessed. Then I told her all about zapping into the TV. "I've experienced my fair share of strange happenings in the world, and even some magic now and then. "But this takes the cake," she said when I'd finished my story. "Thank goodness you figured out how to get back." She wrapped her cool hands around mine and clasped them tight. "I don't think I'll do it again," I said. "Not after what happened with Carly Knight. Although, maybe it's better than sitting around and feeling sorry for myself half the time." I'm not so sure about that. When you take chances with deep, powerful magic, it can put you in some serious danger. Even worse than this bruise. Not saying it will, but it can. At least you have Leroy to keep you company." Leroy thumped his tail. After the mustard plaster hardened, drawing blood away from the bruise, Rosalie Clare unwrapped it and gently wiped off the sticky gunk. She reached in her pack for a tube of ice-cold gel. "Arnica. Comes from the prettiest pink flower." She spread it on. It had the fresh scent of summer rain. "Now your bruise will disappear in half the time." We were interrupted by Florida's panicky yells. "Where is she?" Uh-oh. Was I in trouble? "You better skedaddle, Madison. Here, keep the arnica. Apply it every couple of hours. Come back when you can. And don't worry about Leroy. He can stay with me a while. I'll be sure to tie him up before Manny gets home." Manny? So that was the name of the greasy-haired guy who treated poor Leroy like dirt. I thanked Rosalie Clare and hurried out the screen door. It banged behind me as I ran into the backyard. The yelling grew louder. Florida had gone over the edge. Wow. Seems like our friend Madison has had her share of excitement. And she's learned a few things too. She learned that Carly Knight wasn't all she thought about when she thought of Jessica. And she also learned that Rosalie Clare wasn't quite the crazy lady she'd been described to be. I wonder what our author, Laurie B. Arnold, has to say about all these developments. Let's hear from her, shall we?
Okay, so remember when I said that Madison's perception of people would change throughout the book, just like they changed after she first met Leroy? She was so excited to meet Carly Knight because she thought she'd be just like the characters she played on Just Jessica. Well, that sure didn't turn out to be the case, did it? And then she just met the crazy lady who turned out to be not so crazy after all. In fact, she turned out to be kind of wonderful. So have you ever had a quick opinion of someone and just kind of dismissed them without getting to really know them? I had an experience many years ago. I started a new school in 5th grade, and there was a girl in my class who was kind of nerdy, and I went to school with her all through high school. I didn't really engage with her for many, many years. It's not like I was mean to her or anything. We just never really talked. And then I went to my 10-year high school reunion, and I saw her there, and I came up to her and we chatted, and I have to say she was lovely and smart and kind, and I really liked her. So you've heard of that saying, I'm sure, don't judge a book by its cover. And that's what I had been doing for so many years. And that's what both Madison and Florida have been doing so far. And speaking of Florida, let's see why she's gone over the edge. What do you think? Do you think Madison is in trouble?